The scent of lemon polish and old roses clung to the air in my home, a perfume of quiet decay I'd grown so accustomed to I no longer noticed it. At 70 years old, my world had shrunk to the dimensions of this too-large house, its rooms echoing with the ghost of my husband, Arthur, and the fainter, more painful ghost of the family I thought I had. My name is Martha Caldwell. For 45 years, I built my life around my son, Benjamin. He came to us a scared, silent 2-year-old, a boy with eyes too old for his face, abandoned and needing an anchor. Arthur and I became that anchor. We poured every ounce of love, every sacrifice, every dream we'd had for the children we couldn't conceive into him. When Arthur's heart gave out 10 years ago, Benjamin became my entire universe, along with his wife, Eleanor, and my granddaughter, Olivia. But universes, I was learning, can collapse from the inside out. It began on a Tuesday, with a doctor's appointment that should have been routine. Dr. Elliot Sterling had been our family physician since Benjamin was a gangly teenager. He was a man of steady hands and quieter words, his office a sanctuary of predictable order. That day, the order was fractured. "Your vitals are excellent, Martha," Dr. Sterling said, his stethoscope cold against my back. "Blood pressure, better than mine. Cholesterol, perfect. For a woman of 70, you have the constitution of a 50-year-old. He said the words, but his eyes, usually so direct, skated away from mine. I saw a fine tremor in his fingers as he made a note in my file. A bead of sweat traced a path down his temple. "That's wonderful news, Elliot," I replied, my own voice sounding thin in the overly warm room. "Is it?" he murmured, almost to himself. Then, louder, "Yes. Yes, of course. Many good years ahead." The rest of the examination passed in a blur of his uncharacteristic clumsiness. He fumbled a blood pressure cuff, dropped a pen. As I gathered my purse from his desk, he moved behind me. For a heart-stopping second, I thought he was going to steady me, a gesture for a frail old woman. Instead, his hand brushed the leather of my bag, and I felt the subtle, papery whisper of something being slipped inside. He leaned close, his voice a low, urgent breath against my ear. "Family isn't always what it seems, Martha. Be careful." The cab ride home was a journey through a suddenly alien city. The familiar streets seemed menacing, the sunlight too bright. My purse, with its secret cargo, felt heavy as a stone on my lap. Family isn't always what it seems. The words echoed the dread that had been coiling in my gut for months, a feeling I dismissed as the paranoia of an aging mind. The house was silent when I entered, but it was a watchful silence. I found them in the living room, a perfect tableau of domesticity that now felt staged. Benjamin was in Arthur's old armchair, a place he'd begun occupying with increasing possessiveness. Eleanor was on the sofa, a sheaf of papers in her lap she quickly tucked into a folder. Olivia was scrolling through her phone, but her body was tense, angled away from her parents. "Mom," Benjamin said, his smile a tight, practiced stretch of his lips. "How was the appointment?" "Fine. Dr. Sterling says I'm in perfect health." I kept my voice light, neutral. A flicker of something, disappointment? Annoyance, passed between Benjamin and Eleanor so quickly I might have imagined it if I hadn't been watching so closely. "That's great, Mom," Benjamin said, the words hollow. Olivia didn't look up from her phone. "Yeah, awesome, Grandma. More time to, enjoy things." The air at dinner was thick with unspoken words. The clink of cutlery against china was deafening. Eleanor's attempts at conversation were brittle, and Benjamin's replies were monosyllabic. Olivia pushed her food around her plate, a sullen storm cloud. "Is everything all right?" I finally asked, breaking the unbearable tension. "You've all been so quiet." Just tired, Mom, Benjamin said, not meeting my eyes. Work has been a beast. Eleanor's planning the church fundraiser. You know how it is. I did know. But I also knew the difference between tiredness and this cold, deliberate distance. Later, in the sanctuary of my bedroom, with the door locked for the first time I could remember, I retrieved the note from my purse. My hands, which had steadied a crying child, comforted a dying husband, and built a life, now trembled so violently I could barely unfold the small square of paper. The handwriting was Dr. Sterling's, but rushed, jagged with stress. Martha. Your family came to see me yesterday. Eleanor was very insistent, asking detailed questions about your mental state. She suggested you were becoming forgetful, paranoid, that you were a danger to yourself. She asked if I would certify you as needing permanent, institutional care. Benjamin asked specific questions about your assets, your pension, the house's value. They are moving quickly. I cannot, in good conscience, be a part of this. You are of sound mind and body. Do not go home. Run, Elliot. The world tilted. The floral wallpaper, the framed photographs of a smiling Benjamin at graduations and weddings, the quilt my own grandmother had stitched, it all swam in a nauseating spiral. The words institutional care and assets burned themselves onto my retinas. This wasn't just neglect or ingratitude. This was a calculated, cold-blooded conspiracy. The son I had raised, loved, and devoted my life to was planning to have me declared insane, to steal my freedom and everything Arthur and I had worked for, and to lock me away to die in obscurity. The betrayal was so profound it was physically painful, a vice tightening around my chest. I sank onto the bed, the note crumpled in my fist, and wept silent, ragged sobs for the woman I had been, for the love I had believed in, for the 45-year lie. Sleep was impossible. I lay in the dark, every creak of the old house sounding like a footstep, every rustle of the wind like a whisper of conspiracy. And then, at 2:17 a.m., I heard them. Voices, hushed but sharp, coming from the kitchen directly below my room. The air vent in my floor had always carried sound. Tonight, it would be their undoing. I crept out of bed, my heart hammering against my ribs, and lay on the floor, my ear pressed to the cold wood near the vent. Won't play ball, Eleanor was saying, her voice a sharp hiss. The self-righteous old fool. I told him she leaves the stove on, that she wanders the neighborhood at night, that she doesn't recognize Olivia. He had the audacity to suggest we might be stressed and projecting. Damn it, Benjamin muttered. We need that certification. Lawson said it's the cleanest way. Lawson. Their lawyer. My blood ran cold. So we find another doctor, Eleanor snapped. There's always someone willing to sign for the right price. We can't wait, Benjamin. My portfolio hasn't recovered, and your situation isn't getting any better. We need liquidity now. My situation is under control, Benjamin shot back, but his voice lacked conviction. Really? Then why did Tony's men call again today? They aren't asking for IOUs, Benjamin. They're asking for their money. A gambling debt. The pieces were falling into a horrifying picture. Grandma's pension and the reverse mortgage on this place would cover it, Olivia's voice chimed in, casual, as if discussing the weather. Plus, I need my tuition for Stanford by the end of the month. I'm not missing my spot because she's too healthy to die. I pressed my fist to my mouth, stifling a gasp. My granddaughter. The child I'd sung to sleep, whose skinned knees I'd kissed. Olivia, that's enough, Benjamin said, but it was a weak protest. Why? It's the truth. She's lived her life. It's our turn. This house, her money, it's all just sitting here, rotting with her. We could be in a penthouse. I could be at a proper university, not some state school. Your grandmother sacrificed a lot for this family, Benjamin said, and for a fleeting second, I thought a shred of decency remained. And we've sacrificed for her. Eleanor cut in. For years, we've had to tiptoe around her, include her in everything, listen to her endless stories about the past. I married you, Benjamin, for a future, not to be a nursemaid to a woman who isn't even your real mother. The blow landed with the force of a physical strike. Not even your real mother. After everything, that was the card she played. There was a long silence. The plan remains the same, Benjamin said, his voice now cold, decisive, the voice of a CEO making a tough call. I see Lawson tomorrow to explore the incompetence declaration without a doctor's note. We accelerate the environmental pressure. Environmental pressure? Olivia asked. Make life here uncomfortable for her, Eleanor clarified, a cruel smile in her voice. We hide her things. Tell her she said things she didn't. We switch her blood pressure pills for sugar pills. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make her seem confused, unstable. In a month, any doctor will see what we want them to see. They were going to gaslight me. They were going to systematically dismantle my reality until I no longer trusted my own mind. Perfect, Eleanor purred. And once she's safely tucked away, we have power of attorney. We sell this mausoleum, liquidate everything, and finally start living the life we deserve. They began to laugh, a soft, conspiratorial sound that slithered up through the floorboards and wrapped around my heart, freezing it. In that moment, something in me didn't just break, it shattered, and from the shards, a new, harder substance began to form. The grieving mother was receding, and in her place, a strategist was being born. They thought they were dealing with a frail, trusting old woman. They had no idea they were threatening Martha Caldwell, the woman who had worked 2 jobs to put Arthur through law school, who had negotiated the adoption of a difficult child through a labyrinthine system, who had managed every aspect of Arthur's successful architecture firm after his death. They had underestimated me. It would be the last mistake they ever made. I had a secret, one not even Arthur had known the full extent of. He hadn't just been an architect, he had been a brilliant, discreet investor. The inheritance I'd always spoken of was modest, the house, a comfortable pension. The truth was far different. Arthur had left me with $3.5 million in a series of numbered accounts in Zurich, and deeds to 2 commercial properties in London whose value had skyrocketed. He'd made me swear to keep it secret, to use it only for absolute emergencies or for Benjamin if he ever proved himself truly worthy. He'd known, perhaps, that money has a way of corrupting even the best intentions. Now, his foresight was my salvation. I spent the remaining hours of the night not weeping, but planning. I moved with a quiet efficiency, my mind clearer than it had been in years. At 5 a.m., as the first gray light touched the windows, I packed a small, elegant suitcase with essentials, my documents, and the small, leather-bound ledger that held the keys to my hidden fortune. Before I left, I did 2 things. I took my smartphone, opened a voice recording app, and slipped it into the pocket of my robe. Then I walked quietly downstairs, pretending to look for a book in the living room, passing close to the kitchen where Benjamin and Eleanor were now having coffee, their conversation a continuation of the night's plotting. Copies of her credit cards today, Eleanor was saying. We can start small, build a pattern of her being irresponsible with money. And I'll go through her filing cabinet, Benjamin replied. There has to be a will. If there is, we'll need to update it. I had heard enough. I retreated silently upstairs, retrieved my suitcase, and left a note on the kitchen table written in my slightly shaky, old-fashioned cursive, gone to the library and then for lunch with Carol. Back by tea time. Martha. The ordinariness of it was a masterpiece of misdirection. A cab took me to the first stop, the Northern Trust Bank. I didn't go to my usual branch. I went to the downtown flagship, to the private client's wing. A young, impeccably dressed manager named Mr. Davison greeted me. "Mrs. Caldwell, how can we assist you today?" "I would like to make a series of transfers," I said, my voice steady. "And I need to set up a new, secure account, inaccessible to anyone but me, with the highest level of privacy you offer." An hour later, $250,000 was moved from various savings and investment accounts into a new, untouchable vault. I also withdrew $15,000 in cash. Mr. Davison's eyebrows rose slightly, but he asked no questions. My next stop was the Pennington, the city's oldest and most discreet luxury hotel. I booked a suite for a month under my own name. There was no point in hiding yet, they wouldn't think to look for me here. The suite was a world away from my dusty, memory-filled house. It was all clean lines, soft light, and silent air conditioning. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city waking up, and felt a terrifying, exhilarating sense of freedom. I was alone, but I was free. It was time to build my army. My first soldier was a lawyer, but not just any lawyer. I needed a shark, someone for whom the law was a weapon, not just a shield. I found him in Alastair Finch of Finch, Harrington and Crow. His reputation was legendary, ruthless, brilliant, and exorbitantly expensive. His office, perched at the top of the city's tallest skyscraper, was a testament to his success. Alastair Finch was a man in his late 50s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a handshake that was both firm and brief. He listened, without interruption, as I laid out my story. I played him the recordings from the kitchen. I showed him Dr. Sterling's note. I laid out the financial statements. When I finished, he steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is one of the most egregious cases of elder abuse and premeditated fraud I have ever encountered. What is it you wish to achieve?" "I want justice, Mr. Finch. But not just prison. I want them to understand the magnitude of what they've done. I want to take from them what they tried to take from me, their security, their reputation, their future. I want them to feel utterly and completely powerless." A slow, cold smile spread across Alastair Finch's face. "I like the way you think. We can certainly press criminal charges. But as you intuit, the true art is in the civil dismantling. We will ruin them, piece by piece." He assigned a private investigator to my case, a former FBI agent named Marcus Thorne. Thorne was a man of few words and relentless efficiency. Within 48 hours, he had a preliminary report that made my blood run cold. "Your daughter-in-law, Eleanor, has opened 7 credit cards in your name over the past year," Thorne reported, his voice a calm monotone. "Total debt, $68,000. Charges include luxury handbags, spa weekends, and a first-class ticket to Paris last spring." "The Paris trip," she said, "was a business conference for Benjamin," I whispered, the memory now horribly tainted. "Your son, Benjamin, lost his position as a fund manager 18 months ago. Not laid off. Fired for embezzling $150,000 to cover gambling losses. He's into a syndicate run by a man named Anthony Tony the Knife Marino for over $300,000. They've made threatening visits." The depth of his deception was staggering. "And my granddaughter, Olivia? Pregnant. The father is her economics professor, a Dr. Robert Langham, who is currently negotiating a quiet settlement with her to keep it from his wife and the university. She's terrified and desperate." Armed with this arsenal, I decided it was time to make my first move. I turned on my phone. It exploded with texts and voicemails, escalating from concern to fury. "Mom, where are you? Eleanor is worried sick. Benjamin. Martha, this is irresponsible. You need to come home. Eleanor. Grandma, Dad is going to call the police. Where are you? Olivia. I waited until afternoon, then called Benjamin. Mom. Jesus Christ, where have you been? His voice was a whipcrack of anger and anxiety. Taking some time for myself, Benjamin. It's long overdue. This isn't like you. You're acting erratically. Are you feeling confused? Did you take your medication? The script was starting, just as they had planned. My medication is fine. My mind has never been clearer. In fact, I've been doing some financial planning. You'll be happy to know I've decided to make a significant donation to the city's historical society. Arthur would have wanted that. A stunned silence. A donation? Mom, that's your money. You can't just give it away. Our money, Benjamin? I let the question hang. Since when is my money our money? You're not thinking straight. You need to come home so we can take care of you. Like you were taking care of me when you discussed switching my medications, Benjamin? Like you were taking care of me when you planned to have me declared incompetent? The silence on the other end was absolute. I could almost hear the blood draining from his face. You're confused. You're hearing things. I have it all recorded, son. Every ugly, vicious word. I hung up. The war was now officially declared. Over the next week, from my command center at the Pennington, I executed phase 2 of my plan. With Alastair Finch's counsel, I transferred the title of my house into an irrevocable trust, making it untouchable. I changed all my bank account passwords and set up biometric security. I contacted my overseas asset managers and began the process of liquidating one of the London properties, a sum that would make me more than financially independent for the rest of my life. I also began to reclaim myself. I hired a personal stylist, a fierce woman named Isabel who declared my frumpy grandmother wardrobe a crime against humanity. She took me to chic, minimalist boutiques where I bought clothes that made me feel powerful and seen. I got my hair cut and colored in a sophisticated silver bob. I started taking yoga classes at the hotel spa. I was metamorphosing from a victim into a phoenix. My family, meanwhile, was descending into chaos. Marcus Thorne's surveillance reported constant, heated arguments. Benjamin was drinking heavily. Eleanor was frantically trying to return the items she'd bought on my stolen credit cards to get cash. Olivia was a ghost in the house, barely speaking to her parents. It was Olivia who finally cracked. She sent me a text, separate from the group chats her parents controlled. Grandma, I need to talk to you. Alone. Please. I'm scared. I arranged to meet her at a quiet art gallery cafe. She arrived looking pale and thin, her usual defiant posture replaced by a defeated slump. They're going to blame me, she blurted out as soon as she sat down, tears welling in her eyes. Dad and Mom. They said if the legal stuff goes bad, they'll tell the police it was all my idea. That I'm a drug addict who manipulated them to get money. They'll say the baby's father is a dealer. The sheer, breathtaking cruelty of it left me speechless for a moment. Why are you telling me this, Olivia? Because I was wrong, she sobbed, the facade of the cynical teenager crumbling completely. I was horrible to you. I listened to them and I believed them. I thought you were just this, boring, burdensome old woman who was in the way. But you're the strongest person I know. You walked away. You're fighting back. I want to be on your side. I studied her face, looking for the deception, the manipulation I had come to expect from my family. But all I saw was raw, terrified honesty. What does that mean, being on my side? It means I'll testify. I'll tell the police and the lawyers everything. I have my own recordings. I have text messages. I know where Mom hid the jewelry she stole from you to pawn. She took a deep, shuddering breath. I just need help. With the baby. With everything. I have nowhere else to go. In that moment, I didn't see the treacherous granddaughter. I saw a lost, frightened girl, a product of her toxic parents, who was finally choosing a different path. It was a risk, a monumental one. But to win this war completely, I needed an insider. "All right, Olivia," I said softly, reaching across the table and taking her hand. "You can come stay with me at the hotel. But there are rules. Total honesty. Total transparency. And you will do exactly as Mr. Finch and I say. This is a battlefield, not a sleepover." The gratitude that flooded her face was the first genuine emotion I had seen from my family in years. "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you." With Olivia defected and installed in the suite's second bedroom, the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. We now had a treasure trove of evidence, dates, times, specific plans, and the location of my stolen property. The final act was set in motion by my family's own desperation. As Alistair Finch had predicted, they accelerated their plans. Benjamin, using forged documents, attempted to get a $500,000 home equity loan on my house. The bank, alerted by Finch, called the police. The arrest was swift and public. Benjamin and Eleanor were taken into custody outside the loan office, their shocked faces captured by a news photographer, tipped off by Marcus Thorne. The trial was a media sensation. The grandma versus the grifters, the headlines screamed. I attended every day, dressed in my new, powerful clothes, with Olivia by my side. On the stand, I was calm, articulate, and devastating. I wasn't a confused old woman, I was a wronged matriarch. When Olivia testified against her parents, the courtroom was riveted. She detailed their conspiracy with a chilling clarity, producing texts and recordings that sealed their fate. The most damning was a recording of Eleanor saying, "She's not even his real mother. We deserve this more than she does." Benjamin was sentenced to 15 years for conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Eleanor received 12 years. The judge, in his closing remarks, condemned their bottomless avarice and profound moral bankruptcy. As they were led away in handcuffs, Benjamin turned and looked at me one last time. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow, broken emptiness. There was no apology, no recognition. Just the final, silent acknowledgement of his defeat. In the year that followed, the dust settled. The house was sold, the proceeds, along with a portion of my secret wealth, used to establish the Caldwell Foundation, dedicated to preventing elder abuse and providing legal aid to its victims. Olivia gave birth to a baby girl she named Hope Martha. She deferred Stanford for a year, choosing to attend a local college while living with me in a beautiful, secure apartment I bought overlooking the park. Our relationship was forged in the fire of betrayal and became something stronger and more honest than anything we'd had before. We were not just grandmother and granddaughter, we were survivors, allies, and the family we had chosen for ourselves. One afternoon, as we pushed Hope's stroller through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet, Olivia turned to me. "Grandma, do you ever miss him? After everything?" I watched a leaf drift down from a golden maple tree, spinning in the crisp air. "I miss the boy he was," I said finally. "I miss the man I thought he would become. But I do not miss the man he chose to be." Grieving for the person you hoped someone would be is different from missing the person they are. She nodded, understanding in her young eyes. I think I'm finally learning the difference. I learned that kindness without wisdom is self-destruction, I said, tucking my arm through hers. And that the greatest legacy we can leave isn't money or property, but the strength to face the truth, and the courage to build a new life from the pieces, no matter how old you are. The sun was warm on my face, my granddaughter's arm was linked with mine, and the cooing of my great-granddaughter filled the air. The past was a closed book, a story of a woman who had been asleep. But I was awake now. And my story, our story, was just beginning.